We filmed a commercial for a fashion brand in one single day. We went to 5 locations and worked with over 10 talent in order to bring this vision to reality. One day I was scrolling through Instagram and I ran across a really cool video made by Chris. And so I shot over a DM asking to meet up for coffee just so I could pick his brain and get to know him more as a creative. Basically, what started it all was an idea to create the best thing I could create in the fashion world when putting my mind to pre-production and really storyboarding and thinking through a narrative ad that would tell the story of a brand and push the brand forward. And my initial concept was to just kind of do it for a Nike or an Adidas, just like a brand that I already currently use and wear and am interested in. But Chris gave me an amazing idea to attach it to a brand in the city, a brand that actually has a real impact, that has real followers, a brand that's doing something cool in Charlotte. And so a brand that I had previously worked with was Kicks and Fros. And I decided, why not? Let's reach out to Mel and see if she'd be interested in doing something like this. She was all about it. She was like, you guys have full creative freedom, do whatever you want. I'm all for it. But we really wanted to make sure that this project was something that could represent Kicks and Fros well and wasn't just something that we would be happy to create and something that would represent ourselves. And so what we did was we had a meeting with Mel for about an hour where we just kind of talked through her business and how it started, the things that she values, the questions that she gets asked, the things that make her unique in the space. And after that meeting, we kind of had an idea of what we think would help represent her brand in a great way, something that would drive the voice of her brand forward. We didn't want to just create a trendy piece that would kind of fade as social media progresses, but we wanted to create something that would represent the brand well and that could live for a good amount of time wherever it's shared. I knew I wanted it to be the best that it could be, and that meant that I had to be comfortable with passing off certain elements of the production to other people and trusting them with it. So that meant trusting Chris to come on and co-direct with me. It meant trusting Asha, who we brought on as the scriptwriter. It meant trusting Brandon, who was our sound guy on set, trusting all the different hands that were involved to create the vision that I had in my head. And that's something that I've been learning recently, is learning to let go of that control that I feel like I need to have over everything, and realizing that you can trust other people with your vision and they can execute it well, if not better than how you envisioned it in your head. And so with this project, I knew if I wanted to create the level of commercial ad that I wanted to create, I had to bring in people. And so the first person obviously was Chris to co-direct on the project. And then the next person I reached out to is actually Crystal from CliqueBait. What I ended up telling her is this whole concept of multiple ads that I wanted to create. And I asked her if there's anything you think you can do to kind of help build this out. She ended up doing multiple things. She helped out with another ad that I'll talk about later. She ended up providing me with a contact for the scriptwriter, Asha, who created an amazing script that you hear voiced over by Mel. And then also, we knew we needed sound, because sound design would be an important element to this film. And that's why we brought Brandon Burkett, who's an amazing sound guy. He captured amazing practical audio in the field. And that helped so much in the final edit, because we had a great basis to work off of. And all we really had to do was add some atmosphere, add some special effects to make it, reach that level that we wanted it to be at. I also consulted this database that I have of creators in order to find a person to help us with BTS. Unfortunately, some of that fell through, but we were able to have Bryant Lindsay, who was the photographer, and he was able to hop back and forth between photo and video and grab some much needed BTS of the day, along with Jaslyn, my wife, who was helping as a production assistant, but also grabbed some clips. Let me talk a little bit more about the script. Building out the script was really the foundation for the film, because I knew that the concept that I wanted was, the final line is, it's no matter who you are or what you do, the sneakerhead lives in you. When Mel told us about the company, one thing that stood out to myself and Chris was the fact that there were all types of people that were interested in sneakers. It didn't matter if you were a doctor, a lawyer, an artist, a painter, a singer. No matter who you are, you can be interested in sneakers. And we wanted to portray that through the film. We wanted to show different people from different walks of life that are doing different things, and allow you to see that even they can be sneakerheads, even they can be interested in sneakers. And so we got a list of people from Mel that she wanted to reach out to and would be interested in being a part of this. And then from there, we had kind of different roles that we filled out. Then I set a meeting with Asha, the scriptwriter, and we talked through the concept, and Asha gave a few great ideas to add a remote worker in because everybody can relate to something like that. We worked through the talent that we wanted to have, and then Asha did her thing, came up with a draft, and we just tweaked some things and got the script to a place where we were really happy with it. With the script built out, I took everything into StudioBinder and broke it down into the different locations and the different sets that we would need to accomplish the looks for all the different people in the script. And so we knew we were gonna have a line about a double Dutch crew. We had a sneaker cleaner, a remote worker, an artist, Sianka, who's incredible, and a mother and a daughter. But yeah, so we built out the script, and then I built the StudioBinder call sheet, which included all the locations and the talent needed. And from there, we sent that call sheet out to everybody. We had another meeting with Mel to finalize all the details and everything. And then from there, it was on to the filming day. So a lot of pre-production work. Pre-production is very important, and that's something that I've learned recently and I've been taking more seriously, and it has really helped elevate the level of projects that we put out. So from there, we moved to a scout day. Because this project was filmed in Charlotte and based in Charlotte, we were able to go to a lot of the locations beforehand and see what we were working with. The first scene, Compare Foods, that was actually supposed to happen either at Compare Foods in Noda or at another Oriental market in Noda. But what ended up happening is Compare Foods asked us to reach out to corporate, and when we reached out, they wouldn't allow us to film at the location we wanted on the day that we were trying to film. The manager that we got put in contact with is actually a sneakerhead herself, and she allowed us to utilize a location that wasn't yet open. And so it actually worked out even better than we could have imagined. We ended up getting a completely empty grocery store. We got to have complete control of the situation and shoot everywhere we wanted to. They actually fully stocked the shelves for us in the aisles that we wanted to use. It looked great. On the scout day, we also went to Hex. My original concept was to shoot right outside that Hex, like that open, grassy area. But when we went to scout, we brought a camera and we kind of looked at the shots, and we realized you could see too much of like the Camp North End vibe. And so we went down to the next opening, and it proved to be like a much better spot to make those shots happen. And we were able to kind of like see a few of the shots and practice some of the motions we wanted to do. Then we went over to the warehouse area and got a look at that. We originally were gonna use a certain room in there, but we ended up not loving it that much, and we ended up doing it in the actual warehouse with the large windows, which actually matched a shot from our mood board very, very well. Then we drove over to this like area that we wanted to do the double Dutch in, and it's just the street. It's underneath this overpass. We kind of like bounced back and forth between doing it in one of two locations, and we had to take into consideration the time of day, how the light would look, and where the light would be hitting, because we wanted it to be kind of side lit or backlit, and depending on the time of day, we were trying to figure out what would work best. I would say scouting is really, really important, and I think it helped take this project up a notch because we were able to really decide what was important, what did we want to capture, where did we want to capture it, how. It kind of eliminated that decision making that we'd be making on the day of when we had limited timing, because we shot this all in a single day. Now I'm gonna go scene by scene and just talk about the lighting setup, how we shot it, and all that kind of stuff, just so that you have an idea of how exactly we did this commercial for Kicks and Fros. So the first scene is in a grocery store. It's Compare Foods. Like I said, we did not light anything. We used the light that was available and just matched the color temperature of the camera to the color temperature of the lights, or somewhere close. I was the DP and chem op on the project, while Chris took more of the directing role on the set day. Chris directed me and guided me on the motions to take and kind of camera movements and how we wanted to frame up the shot. This scene was really fun because Jazzy and her daughter were just so much fun to be around. They had so much energy. Their outfits were incredible. They were actually styled by another talent. We didn't have a ton of time in the space, but we really didn't need it because we knew that we wanted to just get a couple shots in the aisle of food, and then we wanted to get a couple like portraiture style things with the camera right up in the face of the daughter and the mom and daughter together. We really wanted like an energetic feel, something like them running or skipping, jumping, just having fun in the aisle. And so we did a few takes, just kind of following them down the aisle, whether it was from behind, me running backwards. We did some stuff where I was like coming around the corner with them. So we just did a bunch of takes. So we have a bunch of things to choose from. So we did things like changing our focal length from 12 to 25 and you know, just various things like that. Side note, everything was shot in the Blackmagic 6K Pro with the DZO Pictor Zoom 12 to 25. And I believe we shot everything at 6K, 24 frames per second. We shot everything in the B-RAW codec at, I believe, an 8:1 compression. We did the shots of them running down the aisle. We got some shots of just general running around the store, spinning around the chip station, things like that. Then we did the smiling shot. We did that like a million times. I mean, I feel like we did so many takes on that, just trying to get the right camera movement into it, trying to like kind of follow her movement as she goes up, and also trying to get the smile right and the piece in the right location and just like the camera at the right angle. And the final thing that we did in that location was get the mother and daughter hug, and that was that. We kind of wrapped that up pretty quickly. I believe we were like a tiny bit ahead of schedule when we finished there, and then we moved from that location over to Camp North End. When we got to Camp North End, the first scene that we did was with Passion, the remote worker, and in this scene, again, lighting is pretty much just what the sun was giving us, but on our scout day, we had used the sun tracker app to see where the sun was going to be at the time of filming, and so it was pretty much backlighting the subject, which is kind of like my preferred lighting, especially if I'm working with the sun. And so we did have a bounce, and on some of the shots, we used the bounce to kind of fill in some of the shadows. And that was pretty much it on the lighting of that scene. The shot style and like what we did, again, just like we shot everything handheld, and we wanted it to feel that way. We wanted it to feel kinetic and have those just like fast motions, and kind of did some push-ins, pull-outs, sweep-ins, as she opened her laptop and talked on the phone. And then halfway through filming, Mel, the owner of Kicks and Fros, comes up to me and she's like, "Oh, by the way, I don't know if this is important to y'all. I don't know if I should have told you, but Passion does have like a Nike tooth gem or whatever on one of her teeth. It's gold." And we were like, "Mel, why would you not tell us this sooner?" Because like this whole commercial, we were all about showing off the different brands and showing off the shoes, although it turned out to be a lot of Nike and Jordan. And so it was just like, if there is a Nike symbol anywhere, we want to film it in a cool way. So you see that one shot of the Nike phone, that's actually Mel's phone case that we swapped so that we could shoot the case as she's on the phone. And then when we found out about the tooth gem, which was after that shot, we were like, oh my gosh, we have to include that too. And so we got her to kind of do that little grin, and we were able to get some close-ups of the tooth gem. So again, everything was shot on 12 to 25. So to get that tooth gem shot, I think we did push into 25 and get pretty close to get that like that framing. Same thing with like the necklace pool. We got pretty close on that. But for the most part, there were a lot of close-up wides in the whole film. That was kind of one of the things we talked about. We wanted to shoot it on a 12 mil because of just the wideness of the frame. But if we wanted to do close-ups, we kind of wanted to keep it at 12, just because of the way it looks when you bring a wide lens really close to something. And then we wrapped on that scene. Again, at all these scenes, I think we spent less than 30 minutes on. So following that scene, we actually jumped over to the parking garage to film the final shot with Mel. Again, lighting wise, we just used the sun, and we positioned her in a way that the sun was backlighting her or maybe side lighting. And we had a bounce that we used to shine the light on her. So when we were doing this with Mel, we did a couple takes, and we noticed that there was some noise going on in the background. We didn't know what it was, but it just sounded like a bunch of kids just like screaming and yelling and just making a lot of noise. And so we sent Bryant over to actually get them to kind of be quiet for a second, or let them know that we're recording, and kind of see if we can shoo them away to get it done. And he comes back around the corner right when we were gonna start a take, and he's like, yo, they got bikes. About 10 or 15 kids come around the corner on these bikes. In that moment, my initial thought as a director is like, all right, get them out of here. We need to film our scene. This is what we had planned. We're running out of time. Let's stay on schedule. But Chris, and this is why I love working with Chris, right away he was like, y'all want to be in it? Some of the kids were like, yeah, we really want to be in it. And so we had them just riding their bikes in the background while Mel delivered the last line. And so while we were doing that, we were like, hey, why don't we just grab some stuff of just the kids biking? And when we looked around, we started realizing most of them were wearing Nikes or Jordans. We just had them ride their bikes, and I spun around just getting shots, following some people. You know, sometimes I'll just track one person. Other times I'd hang back and kind of get the whole scene. We also went to the top of the parking garage and filmed down on Mel and the bikers. So we just got a bunch of shots from that sequence. And that was a complete accident. There was nothing planned about that. That was just some absolute randomness that turned out so great for the film. And I'm so glad it happened. So right after that, we ended up wrapping up. We went a little over because we got a little hype about this perfect bike scene. And then we went over to the warehouse part of Camp North End. And that's where that was probably the most intensive setup that we had to do because we did light it. We had a couple Aperture 300Ds, one with a lantern and one with the standard dome. And this was kind of where I started feeling the pressure of time. And this is something I'm still trying to learn, is scheduling and getting the right time allotted for the right things. And we really didn't have that much time to light it. And so personally, I don't think we did a perfect job of lighting this set, but we did the best we could with the time that we had. So the sun was coming in through the back windows, which was kind of providing like a backlight, hair light for the scene. And so we just needed enough power to kind of counteract the sun and fill in the rest of the scene. And so we set up a table. I believe Diamond and Mel staged the table with the various shoes and the boxes to kind of make it look full. I don't know how to explain it. We just wanted it to feel like she was in the lab cleaning these shoes and kind of like creating something special out of them. Filming wise, again, all handheld. We got right to it pretty quick. As soon as the table was set up, we had Diamond walk in from the side and we filmed her from the side, from the back, you know, high angle, low angle, just got different looks that we wanted. Then we did some stuff where we wrapped around the table with her. You know, we did a few takes. Chris had some great ideas on what we wanted to do in the scene. So he had her slam down the sneakers, he had her lift them up, hold them up to the light, all different things. Clean them, obviously, as I pushed in, pushed out. Then once we were all wrapped up and we got all the shots we felt we needed, I actually passed off the camera to Chris and allowed him to just do his thing. And he just went and got texture stuff. Stuff of the shoes by themselves, details, wraparounds of the shoes, all these various things that you see kind of interlaced in the footage. That was like the big scene of the day as far as how much setup we had to do and tear down at the end of it. Once we tore down, we got out of there as fast as we could and headed over to the overpass where we're gonna film the double Dutch scene. That one was probably the most intense as far as having a lot of people involved. So everything else had been one talent, one shot. This was 7 or 8 talent. I believe we had like 10 people on site at that one shot. The good thing is once we got there was no setup, there was no lights. We just pulled out the camera and obviously our handy dandy bounce and we got right to it. For a few minutes, we let them do their thing to see what double Dutch looked like, to see what they were gonna, you know, what actions they were gonna do. And then from there, we just started filming. So we got some wide shots of the action. We got some stuff where they were backlit, we were coming from the side. Chris, again, with great call outs as a director, had me film some stuff of like the shadows on the ground and like pan up to them, things like that. Then we got some stuff that was just close up, focusing on the shoes, focusing on the motion of double Dutch. And we just had them like keep going. We would take some breaks and then we'd jump back into it with a different person, or we would tell them like, hey, 2 of y'all jump in. Just do one of them. Do after this girl, do this girl. We wanted to see certain actions and there were certain people and outfits that we wanted to see a little bit more. And so we just kept on repeating it. So after spending some time with them, it actually didn't take that long. I mean, we were obsessed with the shots. It just looked so good. The sun was perfect. It was backlit. It was golden. It was beautiful. And we had a great time. I almost jumped in and started doing some double Dutch. And as you see at the very end of the film, Mel jumped in and that was completely unplanned. That was just, she said something like, yeah, I think I used to, you know, double Dutch as a kid. I don't know if I still got it. And they were like, come on, come on. So she just hopped in and like, she killed it. Like she was so good. And I'm so glad Chris made the call to include that in the film, because even though it wasn't a planned moment, the energy that happened in that moment was just too good to not include. After we finished that scene, we jumped over to the frame where we filmed the artist scene with Sianka. Sianka is an incredible artist. If y'all don't know her, please, 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 go check her out. This particular scene is where like everything went wrong. The whole day was like really good. No gear like went majorly wrong. Nothing messed up like bad. Pretty much the whole day, everything was going to plan until we got to the frame. Our plan here, our original plan was to build like a hall or like a small kind of cube room and have curtains around the edges. These like blue curtains that we bought. So we got a mic stand from Kenzie, which is amazing. But when we were setting up the curtains, I mean, there was just a moment where I realized like, this is just not gonna work. I mean, just didn't look good. We didn't have the right mounts for them or stands. or rods. Like we didn't have anything to make it really happen. I kind of had a moment where I kind of panicked and felt like maybe we should just drop the scene completely and just call it a day. I felt like maybe we didn't get it this time. Let's just kill the scene and, you know, get out of here. But Chris, again, came to the rescue. He was like, yo, let's just put the curtains on the floor and make it kind of like a sea of blue and figure out a lighting setup that complements the blue and all that kind of stuff. What we ended up doing was putting the curtains on the floor, and I had a bunch of gels for the lights. And so we tested a ton of different gels. We wanted to see what it would look like if we did red, if we did yellow, if we did green, purple, pink. And what we ended up settling on was that blue looked the best. And so we lit it blue. We had Sianka walk up to the mic stand and perform one of her songs. We did it a couple times, just getting like the entrance and those shots of the shoes. Then we went into the performance takes, and we did that for a little bit. We would just kind of go through the song, and then eventually I'd be like, all right, let's cut, reset, and start again. And it wasn't until like the third take, I believe, when Chris walked over to, like, I wasn't really feeling it. I just really wasn't. And we originally had two Godox ML65s with gels on them, with blue gels as backlights. So there was one here, and then we had a Aperture 300D right about where this light is, just bringing in some warm light onto Sianka's face so that we could see her. And there was just something about that I didn't love. I didn't love gave me like orange and blue vibes, and I didn't really love it. So we killed the 300, and then we just had the blue lights kind of like backlighting the whole scene. And even then it was cool, but there was something that was missing, and I think we found out later that it was motion. And so one cool thing that Chris did was he just walked over and he started like spinning the light. And I was like, hold on, that kind of looks cool. And he was really just trying to like try stuff and just see what hit. And I was really feeling it. I think Sianka might have maybe did a little bit of like a move that we liked. So then for like, probably it felt like 20 minutes, but it was probably like 5. But for a lot of takes, we had Sianka do the same move over and over and over while I did a camera push in. And the whole reason we did it a ton of times is because we wanted the light to hit at the right time. And so Chris was like spinning the light over and over, and we were like trying to get the lining of the light hitting Sianka's face as the camera got close, as she did this, all at the same time. We did a ton of takes. I think eventually I was just like, okay, I think we got it. One of those is gonna work. And I will say, even though it's one of the fastest parts in the film, like you see that particular scene for the least amount of time, it's actually one of my favorite parts of the film. And I think it just kind of holds a special place in my heart because it felt like such a failure at first, but we were able to recover it into something that we ended up using in the film. That was the last scene of the day. We kind of wrapped up probably about 10 hours after we started. And I am so incredibly grateful for every single person that was a part of this, whether it was in pre-production, writing a script, or helping come up with the idea, or providing locations, people, talent. Everyone did such a great job bringing this film together. Because if you know anything about commercials, film, TV, whatever, anything and everything can go wrong. And for us to have a whole day where the worst thing that went wrong was that I wasn't prepared enough to put up some curtains, I mean, that's a pretty good day. And I couldn't be happier with how it ended up turning out. Talking about the editing part of this was one of the parts where I really grew in my understanding of how to work in a team. When you have this idea, you have this baby, you want to do everything. You want to film it, you want to direct it, you want to edit it, you want to color it. And one of the things that I was able to detach from was the editing, because the concept, the idea, the stuff that I had in my head, I knew I would not be able to accomplish. And Chris actually mentioned wanting to put the cut together, and I was like, take it. And it was one of those things that I kind of still felt like, am I going to have control over the situation if someone else is in charge of the editing? Is it going to come out how I predicted or how I want it to? And when I tell you it was the best process working with Chris, I mean, he crushed it. When he showed me the first rough, I was like blown away. And from there, you know, we made like slight changes, little adjustments, and kind of like filled out the rest of it. I think Chris took a concept that was in my head, and it's almost like he read my mind and just like put it into the edit. There were things that he did that I would have never been able to do, never would have thought of, and it just worked. So basically the process was we copied all the footage over to Chris, which, you know, we had a backup, the main, and then Chris had a copy. We set up a day where I went over, we sat down together, and we looked through all the footage. And during this time, we were just trying to cut down the total amount of footage we had. So we went scene by scene and looked for moments of good. So we did one pass where we got just kind of like general cut downs, and then we went through again and broke it down into like the really, really good shots, the selects. So from the selects, Chris did his thing, just kind of went through and edited the footage down to the cut that you ended up seeing. And so right before this version, Chris was kind of like all wrapped. He sent it to me, and then we set up a date to meet up again and go through the edit and just go kind of frame by frame and just make sure we loved everything about it. And so when we sat down, at first, I didn't think there was any changes that we needed. There wasn't anything that I saw. But once we kind of like started talking and sat down, there were like minor changes and minor additions that we did that just kind of like took it to another level. So like there is like a siren sound effect that you hear. We added that on that second day. There were like some other minor sound effects and things like the cash register sound on the Nike check mark, just different things that we went through and added, whether it was sound effects, moving cuts, 1 frame back, 1 frame forward, just super, super slight little changes. We went through and did all of them, just got real granular. And what's crazy is after we did all those minor little tweaks, we went back and watched it again and it felt so much better. And yeah, so that's kind of how we got to the final cut. And then from there, Chris sent me a quad 4, which is like a super uncompressed, I think it's the most uncompressed version of a file that you can send. Because Chris edited in Premiere Pro, I edited in Davinci, but some of the effects and stuff that we did wouldn't allow you to like pop out an XML, so we had to do a quad 4. So we did quad 4, I took it into Davinci, broke up the scenes, and then just went through and spent a couple days coloring everything and sending stuff to Chris, sending stuff to some trusted friends, and just getting some feedback on like what we could do to make it better. Getting the voiceover done, I knew from the moment I met Mel, she just has a good voice for voiceovers and things like that, where it's like you have like that infusion of personality, but also clarity and tone is just great. And so we took the script that Asha created and I went over to Mel's office and we just kind of filmed. And so what I did was I had her deliver 3 takes of each line, kind of just go through the script and deliver it with a flow. And each different take, she would change the cadence, the tone, the emphasis on different words. And then from there, I gave all those audio files to Chris and let him pick and choose which ones he liked the best. But yeah, on the color grading, as always, I use ButterlyLUTs to convert the footage from the flat log profile over to Rec 709. And I used the +2 contrast version. From there, I made slight tweaks to the highlights, the midtones, the shadows, the contrast, the tone curve, obviously temperature, saturation, bringing the saturation up to bring back those colors, switching around the color temperature based on the scene if it needs it, tweaking the tint if it needed it, as well as making some colors stand out. Like in the double Dutch scenes, there was a lot of like red on the Jordans and stuff. And so I was bringing that up so that you can see it a little bit better. And then once that was done, on the entire timeline, I applied Dehancer. So the film stock I used in Dehancer is Kodak Gold 200, and it really had a like tremendous impact on the final look of the image. Just like with the base color on it, it looked cool, but just a little too clean, a little too sharp, a little too, you know, normal. And with that Kodak Gold 200, it just like did something special to the footage. I'll show you a little before and after so you can kind of see what it was doing. And then on the other Dehancer node, just a little bit of bloom and halation. And on that, there's like one node in between of Dehancer, and there was just like some compression on that, some extra compression. So those 3 nodes were kind of putting that final finish on the footage. And then because Dehancer kind of putting that film look on it kind of took away a little bit of the saturation, a little bit of highlights, I added another node to kind of bring back some of the highlights, some of the color in certain areas back. And I brought up some like certain colors individually also. Yeah, so we brought up some reds and like magenta tones. A little bit of orange was brought back because that was taken down pretty far. Also the luminance of the like reds and magentas and a little bit of the orange was brought up. And then there was a slight increase of the total saturation. And then the very last node that I put on there, and this is something that I do when I really want something to just kind of, because Dehancer obviously kind of dehances the image. I guess that's why the name is that. But I like to sharpen the edges back after doing that because you still get that film look and you still get the grain and all that, but you still, you kind of get that like HD look on top of it. So I do sharpen edges, I turn it down a good bit, but it kind of brings back a little bit of that pop to the final image. Yeah, so that's how I colored this Kicks and Fros film. I'm like super happy with how this whole thing came together, from the edit to the color and just like how it feels. It feels like I just plucked it out of my brain, just the way I thought of it. Very proud of it. I will probably be posting about it for a while, so please don't get tired of me, but this is like a representation of what I truly think I'm capable of. And this was a project that we did in one day with absolutely minimal budget. I think we spent just money on food and curtains that I returned to Amazon. So like, we really didn't spend much money on this commercial. And it just goes to show that if we did have a actual budget to create something of this magnitude, we could go absolutely insane. Hope you guys check it out. Hope you enjoy it. If you haven't seen it, I'm gonna show it now. So check it out.
For the little girl finding her style and the mother rediscovering hers. For the professionals by day and the creatives by night. For the style curators and innovators. For the movers, shakers, and glass ceiling breakers. No matter who you are and what you do, the sneakerhead lives in you.
That was the longest video I've recorded. The longest take. Editing this is gonna be a nightmare, but it's gonna be so much content from like, yeah, it's literally midnight. I'm filming this at midnight. So if you're watching this, I don't care if this gets 40 views. If you were one of the 40, thank you for watching. If you leave a like on this, if you leave a comment on this, anything, you are greatly appreciated. It really actually, like being completely serious, it means a lot for anyone to see this content and feel either inspired or like they learned something or just entertained. Whatever you get out of this, I'm just happy that you're here, and hopefully it reaches at least one person that feels one of those things, inspired, educated, or entertained, and hopefully you keep on watching. So thank you all for being here, and hold on, I'm gonna do a really cool outro. You ready? Peace.